Funk music was born here with James Brown. Soul music was born here in Macon with Otis Redding. Rock and roll was born here in Macon with Little Richard. Southern rock was born here. How does Grant's Lounge fit into that? I think that out of those four genres, you can say that the Southern rock was born here.
It's only a few chosen ones like that. You got James Brown, you got my dad, you got Little Richard, and they're just icons.
Where they had the largest rhythm and blues booking agency of the time, including not just Otis Redding, but Percy Sledge, Sam and Dave, Arthur Conley, so many more, even Etta James for a short period, all out of here in Macon.
Richard was quite a talent. He, of course, worked at a restaurant in downtown Macon, and he would sing on the side, you know, and he was more or less discovered there.
The big house was home for the band.
I, fortunately, had the pleasure of being the first one to play that without music, just the Flames and James Brown singing.
If you listen to American music, all roads lead back to Macon, Georgia, and that's just a really important story to tell.
Rich music heritage from James Brown, Otis, and
Yes. Oscar Mack. I don't know if you remember Oscar. I had predicted that Oscar Mack would be the real star from Macon, Georgia, that would emerge from this city. However, I was wrong. But Oscar did make a couple of good records on Stax Records, and they did quite well. But Otis was the big man, of course. James Brown and Little Richard led the way.
With no disrespect to a lot of musicians, I mean, you just know it's only a few chosen ones like that. You got James Brown, you got my dad, you got Little Richard, and they're just icons. And they're in a class of their own, and they all had their own thing. And there's something very, very special about each one of them. I think with my dad, his thing was his vocal delivery and his way of expressing the song. Little Richard was his style and his image. James Brown was his dancing.
I say when people say, well, what's your favorite story? I'm like, that's like saying, which one's your favorite child? I mean, they're just all, it's the stuff that movies are made of. In fact, there isn't a movie script that could quite replicate everything that happened here in Macon, Georgia with all that. I would definitely say my favorite part of the storyline, though, is the friendship that my father and Phil had with Otis Redding. I mean, it was unheard of at the time. This is the segregated South. They were naive, and what they were naive about actually ended up being their best asset. They just jumped right into this music business, all three of them.
We formed a band, and Little Richard was the vocalist. We traveled Georgia, Alabama around, and Little Richard was the featured vocalist with the group, playing piano and singing his woo-boppa, loo-boppa, loop-bop, bam, or whatever.
Macon was a town where the Allman Brothers lived for many years. Their record company was in Macon, Georgia, and so it was a good home base for them and a central location to live and to record. The label was here, management was here, and just a pleasant environment for them to be in and to raise families and start and stop their tours.
Big Saul, Charles Green, recorded the Please, Please, Please a cappella without music and put it on a disc, an acetate disc. I don't know if you remember the acetate disc that played Inside Out. Okay. But anyway, this recording was made at WIBB, and I fortunately had the pleasure of being the first one to play that without music, just the Flames and James Brown singing, and he was heard doing this song on the radio by an executive from King's Records.
You know, there were a lot of clubs and spaces for bands to play, but Macon was a very conservative town, having more churches per capita than just about any other in the country. And the Bible Belt, that's right, that's right. And so, you know, these hippies with long hair and tore up jeans, you know, straggy beards, you know, they just weren't that open to them coming and playing in their clubs. So, but Dad opened up to them. And so when Phil and Frank wanted to hear a band, they would usually book them here. So they booked the Marshall Tucker Band here, who they actually signed the deal, from what I understand, here that night. And of course, Leonard Skinner band was booked here. Of course, Wet Willie, who was recently inducted to the Georgia Music Hall of Fame this past weekend. And then you had Eric Quincy Tate. You had Charlie Daniels, right.
So you tell me about Charlie Daniels?
Yeah. Devil Goes Down to Georgia. Yeah, right there on that stage.
Otis, as I said, was singing along with Johnny, and he went along more or less for the ride to Memphis, Tennessee, where Johnny was to make a recording. And at that time, they finished the recording, and there was a little time left on the sheet, so Otis pleaded and begged, and they let him go in and cut a couple of songs. And fortunately, These Arms of Mine was the production that went through that day.
At the time, there was a record company and a management company in Macon called Capricorn. And the owner of Capricorn had worked with Otis Redding. And Dwayne had worked with Otis's drummer, J-Mo, in Muscle Shoals. And after Otis passed away, he had to figure out what to do. And somebody said, well, you got to hear this guitar player that's playing in Muscle Shoals. So he sent somebody to hear Dwayne and basically offered him a record deal or a management contract with no band, which again, at the time, nobody did that. But there was something special about Dwayne.
I've been loving you.
I've been knowing you too long, but I never get it twisted. Can't nobody do it like Otis Redding. I just do it the way I do it. But the thing was, before I went on stage, he told me a story. He told me that one of the first concerts he ever went to was an Otis Redding concert, and his big brother took him, Dwayne Allman took him to see my dad perform, and that's one of the first concerts he ever went to. And he told me that right before the show. I was like, nah, that's deep. That was really deep, really special, real special moment. You know?
There's been a lot of tragedy in all of the Macon music history story, between Otis's plane crash, between Dwayne and Barry dying on their motorcycles. My dad later managed the band Leonard Skinner. They also had a plane crash, and I one time asked my father, I said, did you ever feel like there was like a hex on your back? I mean, you know, all these artists that they work with died these really tragic deaths. And he said, well, for a while he really had to grapple with that. But after a while, he made peace with the fact that these artists were destined to do great things in such a short period of time. And in that, the reasons of fate that brought them all together so they could help each other get all that accomplished in a short period of time, it was more of a blessing than any kind of curse.
Macon is quite fortunate to have had all these stars, and always people ask me, what's going on in Macon? What causes all of this? And I say it's the water, and I try to drink a little bit every day.
I don't think it's over. I think there's still more music to be made, and there's more history to be made. And so I'd like to think of Grants more as a living museum where new music is still being created.
I would like for us to embrace our music heritage even more and make it one of our driving tourism assets. And that's as simple as, you know, come take a rock candy tour, go sit at the bar at Grant's Lounge, go to the Big House Museum, pay your respects to the Otis Redding statue, and then share those stories with others.